Supervisor Steico, member of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to present the long-awaited 2020 local road plan. I believe Mr. Walsh, did you want to have some initial comments in regards to this? All right, appreciate that. Pretty exciting thing, no doubt about it. I know the community's been waiting for it. What I want to do is actually start with, again, I apologize for the scale of this map, but what I wanted to show was this is in 2018, without our road millage or our bond, this is the amount of work that we were able to accomplish out of our 147 miles of local streets. So not a lot of work there. In fact, in 2019, this is what we were able to accomplish. This is Towner Road. That's essentially what our local dedicated millage had the ability to fund in our community. So our needs far exceeded our ability to pay for it. And thanks to the voters, we now have the dollars to do what we need to do. And our first year, again, is here for your for review. This is the 2020 map. We're anticipating accomplishing 10.24 miles of rehab work. That's the heavy rehabilitation. In the Carriage Hills Estates, we'll be doing Hagedorn and Birch Row. In the Skyline Heights, we'll be doing Dawn and Skyline Court. In Everett Hills, we'll be doing Coventry. In the Village of Namoka neighborhood, we'll be doing Shaw, Potter, Lake Lansing, or also known as Park Street. In the Wood Valley neighborhood, we'll be doing Wood Valley, the end of that, and also Moss Glen, which is cul-de-sac. In the Wildflower Estates, we'll be doing Starflower and Wild Iris. Strawberry Farms, we'll be doing Strawberry, Canoga, and Casey. In the Ottawa Hills neighborhood, we'll be doing Seminole, Mohawk, and Algonquin. In the Sundance Estates neighborhood, we'll be doing Cape Side and Aztec Way. In the Okemos Square neighborhood, we'll be doing Greystone Drive and Seville. In Shaker Heights, we'll be doing Shaker Boulevard, Calgary Boulevard, and Marabou. And if I butcher some of these names, my apologies. Shoals neighborhood, we'll be doing Shoals, Starboard, and Nautical. In the Sunwind Estates, we'll be doing the Hazy Lane cul-de-sac. In Briarwood, we'll be doing Arundel Place, Hemingway, Yosemite, Dixon, and Raven. And then in Hiawatha Park, we'll be doing East Arbutus, West Arbutus, and Algoma, again, for a total of 10.24 miles of heavy rehab work. Those are the orange streets on the map, and also that you have in front of you there. Just so the public knows, we'll be putting this list and the map up on the website tomorrow, so people will have that for their purview. In addition to that rehabilitation work that we'll be doing, we'll also be doing over 16 miles of crack sealing. And really the goal of that is to preserve those roads that are some of the newer pavements we have. We'll be doing that work in the following neighborhoods: the Tower Gardens, the Heritage Hills, Sierra Ridge, Lake of Hills, Cameron Oaks, Central Park Estates, Indian Hills, Tacoma Hills, Champion Woods, the Meadows and the Sanctuary, and the Spring Lake Common area, and also the Ponderosa, for a total of 12 neighborhoods of that preservation work. Our selection criteria is really essentially what we've been doing for the last 5 to 7 years. We looked for the rehabilitation work. It had to have a PASER rating of 1 to 3, which really are our worst roads. And again, unfortunately, that's the most costly work, but we recognize that that's the most significant work that needs to be done. So early in this program, we're going to really have a focus on trying to get those roads in good condition. And then we also looked at neighborhoods that haven't had any recent work over the past 5 to 7 years, and that's why those areas were identified. Again, on the selection criteria for our preventive maintenance or our crack filling, we were focusing on PASER ratings of 6 and 7s. And again, looking at the newer subdivisions or roads that we had recently done within the last 3 to 5 years, again, really to preserve that pavement so we don't get in the situation that we're in now where you have the road done and then it fails over time. We've got the commitment in regards to the funding, all the $3.7 million from the bond proceeds. Just 3.699 is our engineer's estimate for the use of those funds on the rehabilitation work, which is resurfacing work. So we said all that money would go towards those roads, and that's what's going to happen. Our general fund and our match from the county road department will be helping out on the engineering, the inspection, and also the preservation work. And again, that totals about $423,000. Again, our goal was a Payzer rating of 8 over a 10-year period. 8 is good, 10 is a new street, 1 is a failed street. And we're currently at a 4.48. After this work is completed, the rehabilitation work and the preventive maintenance work, we're anticipating a Payzer rating over 5, which is actually a pretty significant bump considering how quickly some of these streets can deteriorate. So again, a little over 5.087, and we'll take those extra decimal points. At this point, our next step, honestly, is to get this thing bid out. Pricing will drive this program, so we're hoping we have some good bid results. I think it's critical that we don't sit on this, that we get it out there. In years past, sometimes we've been bidding later in the season, and some of those prices have reflected that. So that's why we need to move forward with this program, get these bids back, and anticipate a spring start for all this work. That's it.
Well, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Perry? Yes, Mr. Epsimer.
So, Derek, for the rehab work, for the mill and recycle and replace, how many inches are we milling down?
So some of those are crush and shape, which essentially that is actually getting into your base material. We're actually taking the bad asphalt, kind of crushing that up and doing that, and then it'd be brand new asphalt resurfacing. Some of those are full depth replacements. So if there's 5 inches of asphalt, 6 inches of asphalt, that all gets milled off and replaced, but you stay out of the base. And then some of those are 3 inches that we're doing. So pretty significant that we would mill off 3 inches and then replace that with new asphalt.
Okay, so it's a mix of results based on the current condition of the road.
It really
more
is.
So the soils underneath the road.
We have detailed estimates on all these streets, and again, after the election results, some people are like, well, where's the map, right? I mean, from the time that we knew that this was going to be successful, we've been doing the engineering analysis on all this thing, and literally we were messing with Payzer ratings this week, doing that analysis on it because we want it to be as correct as possible. So you're exactly right. Back to your question, each of those streets gets looked at to see what is the best pavement, the treatment that we should be doing on that street.
Yeah, and of course in the past, when we look at that 2018 map, we were just doing a 2 or 3 inch hot in place recycle where we mill that top 2 or 3 inches. We never got really down to a full reconstruct of any of the roads.
Correct. Yeah, the majority of those were the hot in place recycling, and some of those were only 1 inch of new asphalt actually. So they would go in there, mix up some of the older asphalt, but then just new asphalt about 1 inch. So, and those were more 7 to 10 year treatments. And we'll be doing some of those on some of our better roads. Our issue has always been that we've been doing them on 4s and 5s, and really that's maybe we should be doing on 6, 7s, and 8s too. So. Mm-hmm. And the crack sealing is important this year that we do some of that so that we can reevaluate those roads a year or two later and maybe doing some other micro seals or some seal coats and things like that. So as the program matures, we're going to be doing more complex treatments, but we knew it was important to get out there and hit some of those 1s, 2s, and 3s and get some crack sealing done right away.
So in Mannix Smith, our engineering firm, our civil engineers, did they provide input on some of the road projects, or did we do it all internally this time around? So
no, they provided the estimates for them. So our internal engineering team, we would try to identify some roads that we wanted estimates on. They provided those detailed estimates. It really was a collaborative effort between them and our consultants. And then of course we knew what our target budget was, and then we tried to come in using those criteria as I talked about earlier.
Okay, and then my last question before a couple of comments. Do we have any prospect? Obviously, locally, we have Spartan Paving, also known as Michigan Paving Construction Materials, and we have Reith Riley, the predominant 2 road builders in the region due to a lack of resources from the state to create the capacity of road builders in the state. Do we have any prospect of looking, a little bit to the east, north, south, or west? And are there any contractors that we can identify that might also participate in an RFP?
We do. So we've had some good feedback from some, not only our local ones, but regionally kind of vendors that you're talking about. And because of our scope and scale of our project, they'd be willing to move equipment into our area to do some of this work. So
Excellent.
Again, the proof will be once we get bids back, but right now we are hearing positive feedback on that.
That's excellent. So that's a major game changer when you look at the percentage cost increases that we've seen. So, but
Yeah.
knowing our dedication over the 10-year millage, that's good to know that it actually did help, increase some demand for construction work here in the region.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is $3.7 million is a significant amount of road work. In fact, most communities are lucky to do a mile of road or, 1 or 2 streets in their community. And we got a pretty substantial program going over the next decade.
Yeah, it's small in most states, but it's all relative, right? So.
It is.
And then my other, my comment on this is that looking at what you've laid out here, and having walked these neighborhoods and seen the conditions, I think this is a very good first-year program for this 10-year millage. I did take the opportunity to actually go and drive and check out some of the projects from this year. I drove the entire stretch of Towner. I went over to Island Lake Drive in White Hills, down to the Shoals neighborhood where we did a road. And I have to say that the projects were all done very well. So for
I appreciate that.
other projects, seeing issues in the city of Lansing and elsewhere with some of the specifications with the projects and, kind of throwing good money after bad, I was very impressed with the oversight and the thought process put into the projects.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Treasurer Shane.
Yes, Derek. A couple of questions. One is, just to reiterate, were any board members or any appointed officials involved in the selection of these roads?
No, again, this really was the Department of Public Works, our engineering team, and our consultants.
Okay, great. I appreciate the comments that Trustee Oppenheimer made about the current work on Towner Road. Is Towner Road now complete?
Towner Road is complete. There may be some restoration in the spring, but for the most part, yeah, other than restoration, it's complete.
And what about our cul-de-sacs? We had a goal of 5 or 6 cul-de-sacs to do yet this fall.
Yeah.
How do we do on that goal?
So of the 5 cul-de-sacs that we tried to get a early jump on the program here, 2 of the 5, we were able to essentially do the top paving with them. There's still 3 that will need to be completed in the spring.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then regarding warranty work, for the total resurfacing, what is the standard warranty with that?
It'll vary depending on the type of work that you do. And we'll have to define that with the individual contractors, but anywhere for a 2-year warranty is not atypical with some of the heavier work that we're doing. Those can vary, though. I mean, we can investigate whether we want to do longer warranties. The downside to that, obviously, is they put that in their price.
Right.
To recoup some of that.
There were some issues over the Hazlet Road work that was done at the end of 2018. We heard from a lot of residents who were concerned about that, and really concerned about any new road work that we didn't repeat what happened on Hazlet Road last year. Do you want to talk about the warranty work that was done there to make that right?
Yeah, so 2018, again, that wasn't a project that we were necessarily involved in directly because it's a county primary road, but it got late in the season and they did some of the paving work, but there were sections of it that failed prematurely, essentially. And they did call in their warranty, and the contractor came in and made things right in the spring. So, again, it's very typical in road projects to utilize the warranty function. It's just that, as we talked about during our neighborhood meetings, a lot of times it's the right fixes weren't being used because of the limited budgets, right? Mm-hmm. If the road needs really a $3 million fix and MDOT has $1 million, they'll spend the $1 million because people need to drive on it, right?
Right. But
then when it fails in 5 years, people are like, what happened?
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Lusinski.
Can you tell us, so quite a few projects and residents that will be living on these roads, like how are we going to notify the residents? Will they have to detour? Like, what do we
Do you
expect?
think we should notify them? Is that what you're saying? Absolutely. So an example would be the cul-de-sac program. What we did is we did multiple door hangers with them, actually. So on projects like this, we'll be sending out letters to them. I'm not sure how early we'll do it, but we'll send out a preliminary letter that say, this road has been selected for work in 2020. And we'll talk about whether there'll be issues with trash removal and things of that nature. But because we're not doing a lot of underground work that makes some of these projects longer term, usually the delays can be worked around, but we'll be doing a lot of notifications, to your point, because it's critical. And as things change, we typically then transition to a door hanger. So they'll get a couple letters telling them about the project, and then we'll go door hangers. And if something occurs that, we're anticipating paving on Wednesday, and it doesn't happen, or we get word it's going to be Monday, we're right out there hanging door hangers to let our residents know as best as possible. Things happen, but for the most part, we really do try.
Is there a potential that you would not be able to get to your home?
Usually I guess there's always that potential, but for a lot of these resurfacing projects, what it may be is you need to park not on your street, maybe in an adjacent street or something of that nature, or maybe walk. In one of the cul-de-sacs recently, someone they milled down the road, and they had a type of car that had a very low clearance, and it basically couldn't get up after the milling work had done, so they parked on the adjacent street kind of thing. So we were able to work with the property owner on that. So there will be inconveniences. That I can guarantee you, people will be inconvenienced by this work. We just hope that they're patient with us and understand that when it's all said and done, they'll have a nice new street to drive on.
Great, last question.
Yeah.
So if we say we do have to drive or park on another road, what about folks with like disabilities or maybe senior citizens? How do we help them?
Yeah, so on our initial communications to them, we'll provide them our email address, phone numbers, that kind of thing. So if they have any special accommodations they need to make with us, we'll make sure that, again, if there are elderly people that need assistance carrying things or something, honestly, we'll make sure that those things happen. We're here to serve, and if it means I got to haul someone's groceries, then that's what we'll do, because it's the right thing to do. And again, that's what we're all about.
So they just contact?
They just need to contact us and let us know about it. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone else? Manager?
Just very quickly, there's three things that are important when we embarked on this whole project. One, that the selection of the roads were non-political, and the question was asked and answered. There is no political interference in this process, the selection, and I actually had nothing to do with this until the final list was brought to me. I think keeping it in the engineering and the professional hands is the best way to go. We also told the residents that every dollar would be allocated from the millage to the roads. As you can see, that's happening. We promised that. And finally, how do you evaluate where we're at? How do you evaluate whether this is working or not? Well, it comes down to the PASA rating. The whole goal is to get our roads up to an 8 on the PASA rating. Right now, we're at a 4.5. So really, we would need to, if the first year is working, from 4.5 to 8, that's 3.5. You need to go up 0.35 per year to get to the 8. And if this is working, we need to be at a 4.85 at the end of 2020. And as you heard, we're going to be just over a 5.0. So we're actually en route. If you use this number and you carry it forward every year, we're en route to get to an 8 in about 7.3 years instead of 10. So it's working. Every dollar is going into the roads, and I can assure you it'll be a non-political process for the next 9 years. So I appreciate all your work, and we are heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
Mr. Officer?
Just one final question. So, Derek, when we look at the issues that we encountered this year with road work and kind of the delays on Towner Road due to the labor strike, I believe we're only 2 years out from the next collective bargaining agreement. Does it behoove us at all to pace a little ahead of the pace that the manager just outlined, to kind of get ahead of things if we have a setback year or due to weather conditions? Or
yeah.
what's the drawback in bidding it now, and maybe not being able to achieve the project? What are the pros and cons and the cost benefit there?
The biggest hurdle for us, honestly, is getting the work spec'd. Doing the engineering, the behind the work stuff, figuring out what those individual estimates are, and together in developing that plan. Again, as we mature into the program, I think that'll become easier for us. But ramping things up right now, that's where I'd be a little cautious about saying, hey, can we just jump out there and do $8 million worth of work? The other thing we need to do is spend some time on the underground utilities too, and identify some of those projects and see how those match up. So we truly are doing an asset management program here in the township. So again, I think this is a great start for us. Again, we're hitting some of those 1s, 2s, and 3s, getting some of those worst roads done, and we're going to be preserving some of those newer pavements that we have out there so they don't fall apart on us. But again, as the program, as we move into the program, I think we'll be doing some of those treatments.
Okay, so essentially start at that pace that we need to set.
Right.
And then kind of,
Yep.
jog if we can as we get going.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to have a couple years of bidding, history too, to find out really what the market's going to bear for us, to identify some of those costs. I think that'll be good for us too.
Sounds
And, as, Paisley ratings are reflective of how the roads are each season. So, that's the other thing too. Keep your fingers crossed, board. We don't want a lot of deterioration.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank the voters, the
Yes.
residents of Meridian, who decided that our local streets meant something to them more than the potholes that we've had for so long, and they've gone ahead and proved this. And I think we've got the right person in charge, and appreciate you being there, Derek, and the manager for finding you for us. And go forth.
Well, thank you much. I appreciate that. And I always want to thank my team. I have an outstanding team in the
I
Department
know
of
you
Public
do.
Works and Engineering.
They are excellent.
They are. Thank you.
Okay.